In the quiet darkness of Ouagadougou, a meeting that seemed ordinary began with a small cup of tea. Simple, unpretentious, yet holding the silence of important decisions. President Ibrahim Traoré, with sharp eyes, sat in a tense space, surrounded by familiar faces, those he had trusted, but in this moment, a strange feeling crept into his mind. Something was waiting, and it would not let everything pass quietly. The atmosphere became thick, like something was lurking, ready to erupt. In the stillness of the meeting room, everyone remained silent, only the sound of the wind blowing through the window, carrying the scent of earth and sky. President Ibrahim Traoré sat in the center, his sharp eyes scanning each face around him. Everything seemed normal, an ordinary meeting with senior officers and trusted advisors. But today, something was making the atmosphere heavier, as though a storm was silently approaching. The cup of tea was served. Simple and familiar, Traoré took it but did not drink immediately. He stared into the cup, feeling an inexplicable urge that prevented him from acting hastily. A familiar gesture became a moment of intense tension. From the corner of the room, the young tea server, a stranger, held the tray tightly, his hands trembling slightly. Traoré's gaze never left him, sensing the anxiety and unease in every movement. As each second passed, the air in the room became stifling. The officers and advisors, though they didn't speak, exchanged glances, each of them beginning to question whether they truly knew everyone around the table. Traoré noticed this, recognizing the unsettling uncertainty in the eyes of those he had once trusted. But he didn't rush to speak, nor did anger or suspicion show on his face. He remained silent, observing. In this moment, he felt the tension rising in the air. The tea server, whom he had never seen before, still stood motionless, his hands gripping the tray awkwardly, sweat trickling down his forehead. Traoré felt something shift in the room, as if something had touched the heart of this meeting. But the most frightening thing wasn't the appearance of a traitor. It was the silence of everyone around him, when even those closest to you could become a danger. The truth that President Traoré sought would not be easy to uncover. He slowly placed his hand on the table, silently preparing for what was to come. President Ibrahim Traoré stood up, his movements slow but full of authority. He didn't need to raise his voice, didn't need to criticize. Every movement, every glance, conveyed one thing: vigilance should never be ignored. The meeting, which had once been routine, now became a silent confrontation, where everyone felt the rising tension. Traoré didn't look at anyone in particular. He focused on the teacup, as if asking himself, how many secrets could be hidden in such a small thing? The question didn't need to be answered immediately, but it served as a sharp warning to everyone in the room. Traoré knew that, in this world, nothing was random. Every action, every gesture could be a part of a power play, where a traitor might hide behind seemingly perfect facades. When his gaze met Colonel Lucas Carber, the man he had always trusted, Traoré simply asked, "Are you sure you trust those who served the tea today?" The question struck like a knife through the silence. Carber hesitated slightly, his lips pressed tight, but then he answered firmly, "Of course, Mr. President." But Traoré was not satisfied with that answer. He didn't just want the truth. He wanted those around him to understand that once trust is broken, it can never be fully restored. The atmosphere in the room grew even heavier, as if each person was now questioning themselves. Could their loyalty ever be shaken? Could they continue to conceal dark plots? At that moment, Traoré stood tall, saying no more, but in his heart, a plan had formed, and the hunt for the traitor had officially begun. President Ibrahim Traoré didn't rush, but his silence at that moment was enough for everyone in the room to realize that things had changed. He stared at Colonel Lucas Carber, eyes unblinking, as though piercing the mind of the man before him. Every word, every gesture of Traoré was purposeful, not only to uncover the truth but to show that betrayers would never remain hidden for long. Traoré signaled to one of his aides, saying nothing more, a simple yet powerful gesture. He didn't need to speak to ask for the teacup to be examined. Everyone in the room understood what was about to happen. A few seconds of silence passed. Then the aide stepped forward, picking up the teacup with a solemn expression. Kaba couldn't hide the tension in his eyes, his lips trembling slightly. Everything had crossed the line from an ordinary meeting to something more sinister. And now everyone knew. A conspiracy was hiding right within their ranks. When the aide returned with a small bag in hand, Traoré looked inside. A small vial containing a nerve agent, a substance that could kill a person in minutes. Odorless, colorless, it just waited to be poured into a cup of tea, a drink that seemed harmless. But today, it would not accomplish its mission. Traoré didn't feel anger, he only felt the pain of a soldier who had faced war. But the betrayal by those closest to him hurt more than anything else. "We've fought through many battles," he said, his voice steady, unwavering, "but this betrayal is the worst of all." With a single motion, Traoré gave the order. No noisy arrests, no public displays. The traitor would be punished in silence, just as he had always done. No fanfare, but unyielding. In the darkness of the palace, where only the dim light of flickering lamps illuminated the room, President Ibrahim Traoré sat still, his eyes fixed on the table before him. The traitor, though captured, had not spoken a word. All he did was remain silent, trying to justify himself with empty promises that he was innocent, that he had been framed. But Traoré was unmoved. He didn't need the turmoil of meaningless arguments. He needed evidence. Beside the table, Captain Moussa Kabore placed a black notebook on the surface. He opened it, revealing pages of handwritten notes, names, appointments, and strange transactions. But there was one name that appeared more than any other: Zander the Jackal. An unclear name, never appearing in official documents, but recurring heavily in the underground dealings of traitors. Traoré looked at that name, then turned to Kabore, his gaze sharp as a knife. "Do we know this name from before?" Kabore nodded slightly, his face becoming more serious. "Once, 3 months ago, in an intercepted call. It was related to foreign intelligence." A storm seemed to begin forming in Traoré's mind. He wasn't just dealing with a lone traitor. He was up against a larger force. A conspiracy with control from dark hands afar. "Zander the Jackal," Traoré muttered, his voice rumbling like thunder in a quiet night. "Then we're not just catching a soldier. We're going after the one pulling the strings." The atmosphere became heavier than ever. The hunt was no longer just a fight against one man's betrayal. It was a battle to uncover the mastermind, the one orchestrating everything. And Traoré knew that, no matter what he faced, he would not back down. The shadows moved silently around the room. No sound, no heavy footsteps. President Ibrahim Traoré stood there, eyes fixed on the control room screen, where every movement of the luxury building in Ouaga 2000 was being monitored carefully. The computers, the intercepted calls, the digital traces, all led him to a blind spot, where the name Zander the Jackal lurked like a ghost. When the screen lit up, the light reflected on Traoré's face, highlighting the furrows on his brow. This wasn't worry, it was determination. They had found a clue. The final signal from the burner phone, used only once, led him to a luxury building in Ouaga 2000. A diplomatic area of the capital. A place that, in theory, was too secure, too secretive for any intruder. Traoré took a deep breath, his eyes sharp as though seeing through all the concealment. "We cannot act like soldiers," he said, his voice calm but firm. "We won't charge in like invaders. We'll take a different approach. A silent approach." He turned to Captain Kabore, standing nearby, their eyes meeting like two sharp knives ready to cut through all obstacles. "Operation Glass Eye," Traoré said, his face unchanged. "No one will know we're coming. No warning, only darkness and eyes watching the dark." The intelligence agents were assigned. No uniforms, no traces. Each person played a crucial role in this larger plan, like shadows hiding in plain sight. No sound, no trace. Only when the truth was revealed would the traitor know they had been hunted. And this time, they wouldn't escape Traoré's grasp. President Ibrahim Traoré stood still in the control room, his eyes never leaving the glowing screen where experts were monitoring every move of the luxury building in Wagga 2000. A deadly silence enveloped the room. But in his heart, a storm was silently raging. This was not the time for hesitation. It was time to act. The name, Xander the Jackal, was no longer a ghost in the night. Now it could be caught. Traoré looked back at his team, their faces showing the strain. They knew that even the smallest mistake could cause the plan to fall apart. He took a deep breath, his voice unwavering. "We won't wait. It's time." "Operation Glass Eye," Traoré commanded, his eyes sharp like a blade cutting through all doubts. Everyone in the room understood. No warnings, no sounds, no traces. They would move silently, like shadows watching other shadows. Within minutes, Traoré's elite team was ready. Each of them, whether a cleaner, fruit vendor, or delivery person, had an important task. No one knew exactly who anyone else was in that crowd. They were all part of the plan, designed to draw Xander the Jackal out of hiding without leaving any trace. They moved. Every step, every breath was controlled, as though each gesture was part of a silent symphony. Miniature cameras hidden in obscure corners. Ultra-small microphones embedded in seemingly harmless objects. Every detail had a purpose. The building before them, the place where all the traces led to the mastermind, was now a trap, and they were the prey, led by the path Traoré had laid. And then, that name, Xander the Jackal, would no longer be a ghost. Finally, dawn broke over Ouagadougou, its light dispelling the heavy silence of the night before. President Ibrahim Traoré stood on the balcony, his gaze fixed on the quiet streets below. Everything had changed now. The confrontations, the dark plots, and the threats from within were over, leaving a deep mark on him. But that was not the end. It was a new chapter. A new beginning for the country. Traoré knew that the victory today wasn't the end of the struggles, but a declaration that no matter the circumstances, betrayal would never triumph over loyalty. Those who conspired against him could not break the iron will of their leader, nor the faith the people had in him. He remembered the tense moments when the seemingly harmless cup of tea had threatened his life. But in that moment, he had seen more clearly than ever the strength of his faith and the resilience of loyalty. He was not just the president of a nation, he was the protector of its eternal values. Now, standing firmly on the land he had defended, Traoré felt that a leader does not just live for power but for the people who have placed their trust in him. And though the road ahead would still be difficult, he was ready, with a look full of resolve. Traoré turned to his teammates. This was not the time to back down. This country, like him, would never falter in the face of darkness. The betrayal had failed, and now was the time to build a stronger, brighter future, where loyalty and courage would always be the firm foundation. Finally, the light of the new day wasn't just a symbol of victory. It was a reminder that, even as shadows appear, people will always find a way to overcome, to stand strong, and to protect the core values.